My name is Amina, and this is a story I never thought I'd share. It's a story of mistakes, lessons, and finding myself again. I grew up in Morocco, in a family that valued tradition and faith above all else. I wore my hijab proudly, a symbol of my identity and beliefs. When I got accepted into a prestigious university in America, it felt like a dream come true. My parents were proud, and I was excited for a new chapter. Arriving in the US was overwhelming. Everything was different: the freedom, the culture, the people. I felt out of place but curious about this new world. At first, I focused entirely on my studies. I kept to myself, prayed regularly, and stayed connected to my roots. But the loneliness was suffocating. One evening, my roommate Jessica invited me to a party. "You can't stay cooped up all the time," she said. "You need to live a little." I hesitated but eventually agreed. "Just for a little while," I told myself. I dressed modestly, my hijab pinned neatly, and stepped into a world I didn't recognize. The party was loud, chaotic, and unlike anything I had ever experienced. People danced, laughed, and drank like they had no cares in the world. I stayed near Jessica, clutching a glass of water and watching from the corner. But as the night went on, a guy approached me with a friendly smile. "Hey, you must be new," he said. His name was Ryan, and he was charming in a way I wasn't used to. We talked for hours, and for the first time, I felt seen. As the party ended, Ryan offered to walk me back to my dorm. "You don't have to," I said, but he insisted. We talked about everything: my life in Morocco, his dreams. When we reached my door, he said, "It was nice talking to you, Amina. I hope I see you around." His smile lingered in my mind long after he left. The next day, I couldn't stop thinking about him. His confidence, his ease, it was intoxicating. For the first time, I felt a pull towards something I didn't fully understand. Jessica noticed. "You liked him, didn't you?" she teased. I laughed it off, but deep down, I knew she was right. A week later, Ryan invited me to another party. This time, I dressed differently, still modest, but I chose a brighter outfit, something that made me feel noticed. At the party, Ryan greeted me with a drink. "Try this," he said. "It's not too strong." I hesitated but took a sip. It was bitter, but it made me feel warm inside. The night blurred into a haze of laughter, dancing, and stolen glances. Ryan stayed by my side, his presence both comforting and thrilling. By the end of the night, I found myself alone with him on a balcony. The city lights sparkled below us. "You're different," he said. In a good way. I blushed, unsure how to respond. Before I knew it, he leaned in, and for the first time in my life, I kissed someone. It felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. That night, I walked back to my dorm in a daze. The guilt was immediate, but so was the excitement. "What am I doing?" I whispered to myself, but I had no answer. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Ryan and I started texting constantly, and each message made my heart race. Jessica noticed the change in me. "You're glowing," she teased. I laughed it off, but deep down, I felt like I was living a double life. Ryan invited me to another party, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I dressed in a way that felt daring for me, still modest, but with a touch of boldness. When I arrived, Ryan greeted me with a drink and a warm smile. "You look amazing," he said, his eyes lingering a little too long. I felt my cheeks flush. The night was a blur of music, laughter, and drinks. Ryan introduced me to his friends, who were just as charming and carefree as he was. At one point, someone suggested a game. "It's just for fun," Ryan said, handing me another drink. The alcohol made everything feel light, almost unreal. As the game progressed, boundaries blurred. I found myself laughing, touching, and sharing moments with people I barely knew. It felt thrilling and wrong. By the end of the night, I was alone with Ryan again. This time, we didn't just kiss. The intimacy went further, and I didn't stop it. The next morning, I woke up in Ryan's apartment. My hijab lay on a chair, forgotten. The guilt hit me like a wave as I got dressed silently. Ryan woke up and smiled at me. "Last night was amazing," he said. I forced a smile but couldn't shake the feeling that I had lost a part of myself. As I walked back to my dorm, I replayed everything in my mind. "How did I let this happen?" I whispered. tears streaming down my face. Jessica noticed my distant mood. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "I'm fine," I lied, avoiding her gaze. But I wasn't fine, not even close. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and I grew closer. The parties, the drinking, the intimacy, it all became a cycle I couldn't break. I started skipping classes and my grades began to slip. My professors noticed. "Amina, is something wrong?" one of them asked. I shook my head, lying again. The guilt and the thrill battled inside me constantly. I'd tell myself I'd stop, but then Ryan would text, and I'd find myself right back in his world. One night, Ryan invited me to a party that was bigger than any I'd been to before. "It's going to be amazing," he promised. And it was until it wasn't. At the party, I drank more than I ever had. The music was loud, the lights blinding. I felt disconnected from myself, like I was watching my life from the outside. At some point, I found myself alone with two of Ryan's friends. They were charming, confident, and completely aware of the state I was in. What happened that night was something I never thought I'd experience. It blurred the lines even further, leaving me with more questions than answers. The next morning, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I felt hollow, broken. "What am I doing to myself?" I whispered, but the answer didn't come. The days after that party were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything, not my classes, not my prayers, not even myself. Jessica noticed my silence. "Amina, you've been distant lately. What's going on?" she asked. "I'm fine," I lied, the words tasting bitter. Inside, I was crumbling. I stopped answering my parents' calls, afraid they'd hear the guilt in my voice. "Everything's fine," I texted. But it wasn't. Ryan, on the other hand, didn't seem to notice my turmoil. "Let's go out tonight," he texted, as if nothing had changed. And I went, again and again. One evening, at yet another party, I sat alone in a corner, watching everyone. The music felt too loud, the lights too bright. I didn't belong here. Ryan found me and handed me a drink. "You okay?" he asked, his voice casual. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just tired," I said, but the truth was much darker. As the night went on, I felt more disconnected than ever. I walked out onto the balcony, the cool air biting at my skin. The city lights below felt distant, unreal. Ryan joined me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You're thinking too much," he said with a grin. "Just enjoy the moment." But I couldn't. That night, I didn't stay at Ryan's place. I walked back to my dorm alone, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the empty streets. "Who am I becoming?" I whispered. The next morning, I avoided everyone. I skipped my classes, turned off my phone, and stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling. The weight of my choices was suffocating. Days turned into weeks, and I withdrew further. My grades plummeted, and my professors started calling me in for meetings. "This isn't like you," one said. "What's going on?" "I'm fine," I repeated, the lie becoming a shield I hid behind. But the cracks were showing, and I knew it was only a matter of time before everything fell apart. Jessica tried to pull me out of it. "Let's do something fun," she said, dragging me to a cafe. But even there, I felt like a ghost of myself, present but not really there. One evening, I sat in my dorm room, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My hijab was perfectly pinned, but it felt like a mask, hiding the person I'd become. I thought about my family, about the values I'd grown up with. What would they think if they saw me now? I wondered, tears streaming down my face. That night, I decided to stop. No more parties, no more drinking, no more Ryan. But breaking free wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. Ryan didn't take it well. "What's wrong? Did I do something?" he asked, his voice filled with frustration. "It's not you," I said. "It's me. I need to find myself again." He didn't understand, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. I had let myself fall so far that climbing back up seemed impossible. The days that followed were lonely. I avoided everyone, focusing solely on my studies and trying to piece myself back together. But the guilt lingered. One night, I wrote a letter to my parents. I didn't send it, but writing down everything I'd been feeling helped. It was the first step toward healing. Graduation day arrived before I knew it. As I walked across the stage, the applause felt hollow. I smiled for the cameras, but inside I was crumbling. When I returned to Morocco, my parents greeted me with open arms. "We're so proud of you," my mother said. Her words stung more than they comforted. At first, I tried to adjust back to my old life. I prayed, helped around the house, and avoided questions about my time in America. But the guilt lingered. One afternoon, my mother brought up marriage. "You're home now, Amina. It's time to start thinking about your future." Her words made my chest tighten. I wasn't ready. I didn't feel worthy. But I nodded, knowing I couldn't run from this forever. A few weeks later, my parents introduced me to Amir. Amir was kind, patient, and genuine. He listened when I spoke, asked about my dreams, and never pressured me. For the first time, I felt safe. 6 months later, we were married. The wedding was small but beautiful, surrounded by family and friends. Amir looked at me like I was his entire world. But even in the joy of that day, the weight of my past was still there. I couldn't keep it from him forever. He deserved the truth. One evening, a few months into our marriage, I sat him down. "Amir, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice shaking. He listened as I told him everything, my mistakes, my regrets, the person I had become. I expected anger, disappointment, maybe even rejection. But Amir surprised me. "We all have a past, Amina," he said softly. "What matters is who you are now and the life we're building together." His forgiveness brought me to tears. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could forgive myself too. Over time, I started to heal. Amir's love and support were unwavering, and I began to see my past not as a burden, as a lesson. I learned that mistakes don't define us. It's what we do after how we grow, how we change that truly matters. Today, I share my story not to excuse my actions, but to help others, to show that no matter how far you fall, there's always a way back. Betraying yourself is easy in the moment, but the pain it leaves behind is hard to shake. Thinking before you act can save you from so much regret. I'm grateful for the life I've built and the love I've found. My past doesn't define me, it's just a part of my journey. Sometimes you have to live with your mistakes, but sometimes thinking before you act can make your life so much more valuable. This is my story, a story of mistakes, redemption, and finding peace. Thank you for listening.